everyone, I'm Joshua.
And I'm Abe.
I'm Kay.
I'm Josh too.
Hello everyone, Joshua Myers here, and today is officially the start of my 31 days of Halloween review series. I did one like this last year. It went by really well. I had a lot of fun with it. Now I'm back at it again for 2020, so let's just get right into this. And the movie I'm going to be starting off with is Saw 6 from 2009.
Once you see death up close, then you know what the value of life is.
Why are you doing this?
You feel you have control, don't you?
No, I'm not gonna do it! I'm not gonna do it!
The Jigsaw Killer may be dead, but the murders continue.
If it's Halloween, it must be Saw.
I am still among you.
Saw 6. Rated R. In theaters October 23rd.
Saw 6 stars Tobin Bell, Costas Mandylor, Betsy Russell, Peter Outerbridge, I think is his name. I'll play it right here. Shawnee Smith, and is directed by Kevin Grutert. The plot of Saw 6 is that Special Agent Peter Strom is dead, and Detective Mark Hoffman has emerged as the unchallenged successor of Jigsaw's legacy. However, when the FBI draws closer to Hoffman, he is forced to set a game into motion, and Jigsaw's grand scheme is finally understood. Now, before I get into the rest of this review, I would like to say this review was requested by Robbie Clark. He wanted me to review all the Saw movies. I've basically done just about every single one. After this, all I just need to do is review Saw 3D, and that's it until Spiral from the Book of Saw comes out next year. Please go check him out. He does a lot of really good videos, Saw content. He hasn't done any Saw content in a while, like a long while. A lot of his older Saw content is really good. Please go check him out. He also does gameplay, let's play videos, and commentaries and that. If you want to go check him out for that too, I'll put the link to his channel in the description below for you to check him out. One of the positives I have, honestly, the story. Overall, the story feels like a genuine Saw movie, actually. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like, the story feels more in tune with the first 3 movies than, Saw 4, Saw 5 did. It just kind of has that feeling of the first 3 movies more so than Saws 4 through 5. The reason it feels like that is because it tackles some different issues in that. The 4th movie, not so really. I couldn't really understand the reasoning for why Officer Riggs was being put through these tests because he wanted to save people, or was it because he was impatient? I don't know. It was all confused with that. Plus Saw 5, although I did like Saw 5 a little bit better, it still didn't felt like a Jigsaw movie, like a Saw movie. That's because all Saw 5 really was Hoffman trying to cover his tracks so that he is not discovered as the new Jigsaw. Now we get on to Saw 6, and basically the story, you have this, basically, the story discussing on is the health insurance crisis that was going on in 2009, and you could argue is still going on to this day. There's some people who don't like this story for Saw 6. I knew some people who didn't like the story to Saw 6. And that's mostly due to the fact that they think it's way too preachy. Now, I do agree that Saw 6 is probably, out of all the franchise, the most preachy of them all, because it's dealing with the health insurance crisis and all that stuff. But in my opinion, what makes the story work is the fact that it is unbiased with everything that's going on. In my opinion, it seems unbiased. Of course, you do got the whole talks about these health insurance companies have done to these people, and the wrongdoings these people inflict upon others, but also they show you a bit the human side to the people who run these companies and the people who, for example, you got William Easton, who is the owner of this health insurance company, and even though his policies and that are complete bogus, and they showcase that throughout the movie, he's no different from you and I. He has a family that he really cares about, and along the way he starts to kind of realize the errors of his policy and everything, and I guess start to show more heart towards people. It could have been so easy to this like movie praising health insurance companies and that, and what they were doing at the time, just complete praise. It also could have been very easy to make them in total monsters and that. It could be very easy to do that, but the director and the writer decided not to go that route. And I really liked it. And knowing that too, it's more timeless than the other Saw movies in my opinion, because of the fact it's talking about an issue that, again, is still going on to this day. Also, another positive I have with this movie is the cinematography. I think this is probably out of the Saw movies after Saw 3, probably the best look, like, but before Jigsaw, because I think Jigsaw is a better looking film than this. This is probably the best looking of, I guess you could say, the Mark Hoffman era movies, actually. I really like the cinematography on this film. Also, the editing is really good. Like, seriously, it's just, I can't even describe the editing of this movie. But it's just very fast-paced without being choppy, really. Also, I like what Kevin Gruder was able to do with the suspense in this movie. This is probably, I think, since the second Saw movie where you feel genuine suspense. They would bring that again in Jigsaw, and I already covered that film. But before Jigsaw came out, this has basically been the first Saw movie to have any sort of legitimate suspense. Basically, there's times where it's just like you're on the edge of your seats, and I felt that for this movie. Also, this is the first instant, I think, since Saw 2 where you genuinely do care about these characters. They're despicable people, like some of them are. Let me rephrase that. None of them are 100% despicable in this movie. Again, they make these characters human. And you do like a lot of these characters for the most part. Like, for example, I did like William Easton as a character. Sure, he's done some bad things, but who hasn't? You know? Like, who hasn't done bad things? And you wanted to see him make it through and learn his lesson and everything. You know, just become, like, just basically be reformed into a better person. You did want to see that happen. Also, we get more John Kramer in this movie, portrayed yet again by Tobin Bell. He gives another outstanding performance, and there's so many quotes from this movie I could mention from Tobin Bell. I mean, if you've seen the Saw movies and you like Tobin Bell's performance in these movies, you know what I'm talking about with how he handles his performance in it. And he always ends up being the best actor in all these movies. Also, this is the Saw film, I think, in this, like, the Hoffman era that really tries more of, like, trying to bring conclusions to a lot of the unanswered questions and that. You know, like, we figure out what was in the box that John Kramer gave to his wife Jill in the beginning of Saw 5. We found out what that was, what was in there. We found out what that key was for that John gave to Jill. We also found out what was that letter Amanda read during the events of Saw 3, and that we learned in Saw 4 was given, that was basically written by Hoffman. So we finally found out what was on that damn letter.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Sorry about that, my camera turned off, so I'm gonna have to place whatever bit of footage that was not shown, me talking with actual clips from the movie. And we were also given more context into what had happened in the events of Saw 3, 4, and onward. Also, I really like the traps in this movie. They're not as big and bombastic as, let's say, the traps in Saw 4 and 5, but they're still not as simple as the traps of Saws 1 and 2, especially Saw 1. They feel more like traps that could have been from Saws 1 and 2, more so, in terms of how they're played out. Plus, these traps are winnable. That's the thing that surprised me when I watched this movie, because the other traps in the other Saw movies, there was no way you could win them, actually. Outside the traps you've seen in the first two movies. Even the third one. But there was no way you could win the traps of Saws 4 and 5. And that was because Hoffman did all those traps. And I like that. I like the fact that there was a chance that people could make it out of these traps in this movie. Also, I love the music of this film, composed by Charlie Clouser once again. And I think just in general, like, this has probably been the best soundtrack to the Saw movies since Saw 3, I think. Yeah, Saw 3. And again, I think they also bring in a really good soundtrack for Jigsaw that came out later, but we're not talking about that film right now. Even has probably, in my opinion, either my second or third favorite rendition of the Hello Zep theme, which is called Zep 6, as far as I know. I'm not sure if there's any other name for it, but here's a quick preview of it. This is probably the longest rendition of Hello Zep. I think comes in at like a little over 6 minutes. Also, the twists in this movie I actually did like. Still not as good as the twist ending of 3 or the second movie even, but still really good, actually. I actually like this twist ending better than I did Saws 3, 4, and 5. And, you know, if I was watching this for the first time, in fact, when I did watch this movie for the first time, I didn't even guess the twist ending, really, of this movie. Which I'm not going to discuss the twist ending of this movie, because, you know, spoilers. And honestly, I felt like with the ending, it felt pretty, like, almost like it was meant to be the original conclusion to the Saw franchise. And then they made Saw 3D. I think this would have been really good as the last Saw movie. Well, technically, I think Saw 3 would have been good as this last Saw movie, or the original Saw, actually, as the last Saw movie. But if they had to keep on making more and more sequels, this would have been a good place to stop. Also, the gore is not as grotesque as the other Saw movies, like Saws 3 through 5. It's not as grotesque as that, actually. Like, the gore seemed to be kind of restricted in this movie than the other ones. And that's it for my positives. Let's go to my negatives now. Okay, there's some negatives I do have with Saw 6. First one is, I think there's a lot of overacting in this movie. Not too much, but there's still some that kind of comes off as funny. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not. Like, you got the carousel trap, and you have, like, one of the people's, like, you know, I can't even do it justice. Here's a bit of what I'm talking about.
Look at me! When you're killing me, you look at me!
Look at me! When you're killing me, you look at me! What the hell was that? Was that meant to be serious, or was that meant to be like comical there? Also, another negative I have is with so you got one of the traps. I think it's the second trap. Well, like, just some of the traps really, it's like some of them didn't seem as fair as they could have been. And Jigsaw is all about fairness in that regard. Like, for example, you got the trap where it's like, you have William Mason having to hold on to these chains and that, and you have an old woman and a young adult male, and that they are all that stuff, and it's like, okay, so there was a choice for one of them, but what about a choice for the other player? Also, like the carousel trap, it just kind of seemed a bit unfair with that. It's like,
6, ride the carousel. But only 2 can get off.
6, ride the carousel. But only 2 can get off.
it's like that, honestly, and that seems a bit unfair, even for John Kramer, and for me, it's like, why only 2? Wouldn't a more fair scenario be, you know, like, 6 ride the carousel, 3 could live, 3 could die, you know? Wouldn't that be more even? Honestly, like an even set of number of people that could live or die. Also, there is an after credit scene in this movie that, like, the reason this is on my negative is it shows something that could be potentially utilized for a sequel that honestly went fucking nowhere. You know, like, it hasn't been explored yet, and for me it's like, then why have that after credit scene in there if you're just not going to use any of that, and especially now knowing that they never intend on doing anything with that. It's like, why have it in there at all? And it's kind of weird to me too, because this is the only Saw movie that actually has an after credit scene. Why only this one? In fact, for me, with my third Saw film in the works, Saw Endgame Part 2, I am going to cover what you saw in that after credit scene in Saw 6. It's going to be explored more, so that could feel less pointless. And honestly, for me, that's it for my negatives. So with that said, I'm going to give Saw 6 a 4 out of 5 stars. Honestly, for me, this is a pretty good entry into the franchise. It's still not as good as the first 3 movies, but it is a really good entry into this franchise. There's a lot of stuff in this that were missing in the last 2 entries, and even some stuff that was missing in Saw 3 that I would have loved to see in those. I can't really describe my final thoughts on this movie. It's just a good Saw movie, and probably the last good Saw movie. That is until Jigsaw came out in 2017. That to me so far is the last good Saw movie. But before that, Saw 6 was the last legit good Saw film. So that's it for this video, and my 31 days of Halloween has finally begun. I'll see you tomorrow when we're going to be covering yet another horror film. So thank you guys for watching, and see you next time.